Remember this character? Apparently, he's the most regretted character in Genshin history. Now, I found this poll on Reddit. Why am I on Reddit? I don't know. Addiction, probably. And it was the results of a poll on who the most regretted character was. Before we get into it, I have to make a disclaimer because Genshin mains are Genshin mains. First of all, take this post with a grain of salt. It's not an official Genshin poll or anything like that, not headed by Hoyoverse or anything like that. It's a user poll, and there's only around 800 participants out of like the tens of millions of Genshin players there are. So this does not really accurately represent the whole Genshin player base, but it's fun to look at, and there's, maybe a little bit of truth into it. Now, if you see your character high on this list, or being the most regretted character pool, it doesn't mean your character is bad. Well, objectively, maybe they're bad, but it's not gonna stop you from playing them. Genshin is a single player game, so do what you want. But if you are in despair because your character is on top of the list, you can cure yourself by hitting that subscribe button. 100% medically proven to be true. The perfect cure. Now that the disclaimer is out of the way, let's see which character sucks the most. So the first page is the results of the poll. Other pages are explanations of why people regret pulling for them. But looking at the bar graph, we can see that Cyno takes the top spot, with Klee taking the silver and Child the bronze. Honestly, I was pretty shocked. Now for Klee and Child, kind of understandable. Klee doesn't deal the most damage, kind of clunky to play with her charge attacks and all. That's understandable. Child, very good character, but kind of hard to play around his skill. And well, Ayato also exists, and he's pretty much a more versatile Child. Child is better than the national team, but well, I'm pretty sure at this point everybody's sick of national, which is understandable. I am too. Now, Cyno at the top spot, I was thinking about it, and I could kind of see why. Cyno, he was very hyped up before his release as being like a really fun character to play with. A kind of unique burst where you have to match the timings and all that. Seemed pretty cool. It was unique. But I guess as you played more with Cyno, I have Cyno myself so I would know, the fever dream wears off. The honeymoon period is over. Does enough damage but not crazy damage. He's a balanced character. But balance doesn't always mean good for playing the character. Usually people like strong characters, broken characters. Take like Nahida, Yoan. That's my guess, I don't know. But as we go down the list, we can see Xiao, Ganyu, Yua, Ito, Hutao, Venti, Wanderer, Raiden Shogun, and then so on. You can see the rest. Pretty much what I've noticed is that the hypercarries, or I guess main damage dealers, are usually on top. Right? You have Cyno, you have Klee, Child. He's more of an enabler to enable reactions, but people play him as DPS. Then you have Xiao, Ganyu, Yua, all hypercarries. So there's a little trend here from what I'm noticing, and it's probably because hypercarries are kind of locked into specific teams. Their teams are more centered around them, whereas supports, you can play in many different teams. Take like Bennett and Xingqiu, broken supports that you can run on a lot of teams. Nahida, you can run on a lot of teams. Even Raiden, who's more of like a support but also damage dealer, is more flexible than these hypercarries. Pretty well known that supports are always a better pull than damage dealers, and well, I guess these stats kind of prove it. Again, take it with a grain of salt, but supports you play more often in more teams, whereas hypercarries less teams, and you don't get the bang for your buck with hypercarries. Unless you like them a lot, then go ahead pull. Now on the next page, it goes into more in-depth of why people regretted pulling for these characters, which I find really cool. There's whole pie charts and everything like that. Separates into categories like gameplay, they like feel clunky or slow, damage disappointment, buyer's remorse, impulse pulls, which I have a problem of. Yeah, relatable. So as we look at the pie chart for Cyno, you can see that most of the data points towards kit/damage. Meaning that their damage is not up to expectations, which, I would disagree with. I think Cyno's a very balanced character. His damage is very balanced. It's good enough to clear Abyss, but I can see why people think that, because not broken equals not good. The second one is gameplay. Like I said, kind of overall problems. It's unique and fun in the beginning, but then it gets kind of boring after you just seeing the eye so many times and pressing the timing. You kind of get bored of that. And then Klee is mostly gameplay, understandable. Klee's very clunky to play with, and on top of that, her damage isn't the best. Now for Child, gameplay also, kind of a harder character to play with because of his elemental skill cooldown, so that makes sense. And then looking at Xiao, we can see that gameplay. Personally, I like Xiao's gameplay a lot. I like plunging, jumping up in the air, and plunging down. I can get why people don't like it with, it being repetitive, you jumping up, then down, up and down, up and down, doing the same thing over and over again. I can get that, but I like it. Difference in opinions, but they're wrong, I'm right. Ganyu, gameplay. Makes sense. All you do is charge shot, you wait 1,000,000 years for it to load up, and then you release, and then you repeat. Wait another 1,000,000 years. Not many people have C6. Eula as well, not specified. Probably the reason is when you don't crit, it just sucks. And you want to see big numbers with Eula, so you either build a lot of crit rate at the expense of seeing lower numbers, or you build a lot of crit damage at the expense of not critting. Also, another huge section is dated. Makes sense because physical is physical. Now the last section, pretty much all hyper carries, because, well, supports honestly carry Genshin way too much, which is, I think, good. You can run a team full of supports and it'll maybe even outperform those with main damage dealers. Most of the time it will, actually. So makes sense on why these hyper carries are regretted. So we have Ito, honestly a pretty versatile pie chart. Again, Ito, balanced character, I think, but for Genshin players, balanced equals not as fun to play. And then we have Hu Tao. Gameplay makes sense. At C0, which most people have of Hu Tao, you have to jump cancel to be very optimal. And jump canceling, honestly, is not fun. You're gonna get arthritis, and nobody wants that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. This video was just a fun look at who the most regretted characters in Genshin are. Honestly, it makes sense that hyper carries are the most regretted because, well, they're not really needed on a team because you swap characters so you don't feel like you're on them forever. Whereas other characters like hyper carries, you are on them forever and you kind of get bored of them quicker because you're playing them more. Now again, this doesn't mean that your character is bad. It's just that maybe their mechanics aren't the best, or they're just underwhelming compared to the other broken characters that there are, which are all supports basically. But that's about it. Okay, bye bye. See ya. Stay safe out there. Subscribe too.